Hi, everyone. Welcome to Community Engagement through Democratizing Philanthropy. I'm Lindsay Newman, Director of Community Engagement at Bechol Hashon and board member at the San Francisco Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund.
And I'm Danielle Mashor, Director of Collaborative Philanthropy at the Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund, and I run our Giving Circles program.
Over the last 3 years, Danielle and I have had the pleasure of partnering on the lay leader and professional sides of our organization to explore how collaborative philanthropy can invigorate giving in our Jewish community. As an institution that's been around for over a century, we're constantly asking ourselves, what does a 21st century philanthropic institution need to thrive? The creation of our federation dates back over 100 years ago to 1910, when the Jewish community in the San Francisco Bay Area came together to form a charitable organization to serve the needs of a population that at that time was largely newly immigrants. They came together to help and aid the sick and the needy, assist in the resettlement of Jewish immigrants, and provide widows and children with food and shelter. By the late 20th century, the Federation became the Jewish community's central fundraising organization. Throughout our history, the Federation has been guided by the Jewish value of tikkun olam, which translates to repairing the world. Today, our Jewish community, both around the US and in the Bay Area, is growing and evolving. From a recent community study, we know that there are almost 500,000 people living in Jewish households in the Bay Area. And we know that 25% of those households include a person of color. 10% of those households include someone who identifies as LGBTQ. And we also know that there's economic diversity in this population, where in the midst of affluence, there are also pockets of poverty, need, and economic vulnerability. This evolution of our Jewish community and shift in population also encourages us to reevaluate how we can best steward our collective resources. Throughout our history, innovation at Federation was sometimes due to who was in need, and sometimes this innovation was because of the changing interests or priorities of our donor group. Historically, the core audience of Federation has been relatively homogeneous, highly engaged, highly motivated to give, and recorded high rates of belonging, mostly because the institution reflected their lived experiences and values. So, like America as a whole, the American Jewish community is getting more diverse every day in terms of race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, disability, class, and other identities. Our challenge today is to create a method of engaging the broadest swath of this increasingly diverse community as donors, partners, and participants. The scope of issues that are important to this group of Jewish philanthropists has also expanded. Today's Jewish philanthropists might be equally as invested in giving to institutions that foster Jewish education as they are in supporting the fight against climate change or defending democracy. Federation adds grant-making expertise to the equation as well. Today, intersectional identity is a buzzword that we hear in a lot of places, and intersectional identities are welcome at Federation. We have to welcome everyone to bring all of who they are with them into the room. But beyond that welcoming, we must also proactively seek to identify historically unengaged community members, listen to better understand their needs and their interests, and redesign our systems to better serve them and invite them to take on leadership roles. This has also helped to shift power and agency into the hands of Jewish community members who have not historically been invited around the decision-making table. And that's something we've spent a lot of time thinking about over the last 3 years. And in the midst of this shifting reality, we've really seen that 3 key questions have emerged. We're asking ourselves, how can the Federation become more accessible, raise more money, and be more representative of our 21st century Jewish community and responsive to its 21st century needs?
And one answer that we've come up with is collaborative philanthropy. At the Federation, we define collaborative philanthropy as a strategy that aggregates funds for impact by expanding the definition of the customer, by encouraging new people in our community to engage, and motivating existing donors to engage in new and different ways that might be novel for them, and really working in community. The Federation has found that collaborative philanthropy both works as a fundraising tool and as an engagement strategy. And it also fulfills our Jewish organizational value of working in community. In Hebrew, we call that kihila. And while we're leaning into our core knowledge around strategic grant making, we can also be in kihila. We have been running giving circles since 2014, beginning with a women's giving circle. And in 2017, we launched the country's first Jewish LGBTQ plus giving circle called the Jewish Pride Fund. And these efforts have let us know that giving circles work for both engagement and fundraising and educating donors, and that we want to do more of that. And with doing more of that, we know that we have to invest time and resources for this engagement and education, because we believe that we're going to yield not only high rates of belonging, which is really important, but also we're going to have a more philanthropic community overall. And we're going to engage younger generations of people to start to see themselves as donors that can have impact in our communities. One strategy that we're using to invite people in with giving circles is to ask them to donate a meaningful gift instead of setting a specific dollar amount. And that helps us to reach a broader audience. Community-based foundations have a new role to play in the lives of new and longtime philanthropists, community members, and organizational partners. But we want to engage and expand the on-ramps of community members. And we believe that philanthropy can and should be democratized. So this means that everyone should have the ability to engage in large-scale strategic grant making, no matter the size of the contribution, as I mentioned before. We also want to expand the pathways to leadership. As Lindsay talked about before, our Jewish community really is diverse and multifaceted, and particularly in the Bay Area, but really across the country. And having such a diverse community necessitates building spaces with community members who feel marginalized and that they can express themselves authentically while building trust with the Federation and within their local Jewish community. Successful examples that we've had of this was the Jewish Pride Fund, whose members, some of the members went on to join the Federation board because they had built so much trust and a feeling of belonging. We also want to examine power and philanthropy. In order to have a lasting impact, we have to look at our structures and our systems and how power manifests and who has it and who doesn't. And our Federation has embarked on a number of initiatives to help identify ways to center equity in all its forms. For example, we established a racial justice task force in 2020, which has brought a multiracial group of lay leaders with specific expertise to advise on an organizational roadmap for us to pursue racial equity. And as a result of conversations that emerged from that group, we founded the Tzedek Fund, which is our Jews of color and people of color giving circle. So how are we thinking differently? As we've stated, we're becoming more strategic in the audiences that we're gauging and also in the issue areas. And we're starting to pilot more and more what issue areas might resonate with Bay Area community members, while we're also looking for opportunities to find new leaders. And we also want to connect the Giving Circle work more with our other philanthropy offerings at the Federation. We have donor advised funds, we do impact investing, and we want the Giving Circle work to integrate and be able to leverage all of these other opportunities that we're offering our donors to have increased impact. One example of this is that the work of the Giving Circles can help to inform the work with our donor advised fund holders through our Federation giving guides, which are quarterly recommendations of organizations divided by issue area to grant to. We also don't want to do any more one-off programs going forward. Next slide, please. So some examples of our philanthropic offerings that we're doing is that we have two examples of intersectional Jewish identity-based giving circles, the Jewish Pride Fund and the Tzedek Fund. The Pride Fund was started with 10 members and $18,000, and we now have 29 members and we're granting $56,000. And the Tzedek Fund, which is a Jews of Color giving circle, that was launched in 2022. And it's helping to resource organizations that serve Jews of Color and BIPOC-led organizations in the Bay Area. And I want to mention that the Endowment Fund helped to seed the grant pool for the Jews of Color giving circle, which really helps to get the circle going and is another strategy we found to be very successful, as well as the Endowment Fund has helped to seed our newest giving circle, just launched in March of 2023, called the Global Jewish Citizens Fund, which is focusing on immigrants, refugees, and asylum seekers. Again, this is a pilot, and we're testing to see how that issue area is going to play out in our community. So our vision for the long term is that in 5 years, we hope to be operating 10 giving circles, diversified across models and audiences, and to grant $1 million to approximately 50 organizations, increasing the number of philanthropists that we engage and the lives that we're impacting.
So as the wrap up to this talk, we wanted to share some early learnings and things that have become clear to us as we've done this work over the last 3 years. So we've spent a lot of time thinking about engagement and thinking about how important it is to invest in engagement, and that takes time and that takes resources. It takes staff time, energy, financial commitment, and that has to be valued and designed into the process from the very beginning. As well, when you try to engage new populations, increase the kinds of people that are joining in these philanthropic endeavors, identifying a volunteer chair partner that's networked and committed is super important. When the work is viewed as top down, it really doesn't work. And that volunteer chairperson is really is the collaborator that is, putting the collaboration in collaborative philanthropy. So finding that chairperson who's willing to share their network can really help you expand and diversify your reach. And with that, we, as Danielle mentioned before, we're focused very much on expanding our engagement on-ramps. So as we try to reach those new and different kinds of philanthropists, we need to expand the types of programs and events that we are presenting to the community to bring more people in. And along with that, we really identified that investing in professionals that are trained in relational engagement and donor development helps that process as well. Secondly, we realize how important belonging is to this process as well. And investing in belonging helps to retain engaged participants. We really decided that we had to cater to the whole person. We had to allow participants to bring all identities to the table that matter to them. We created the context for authentic relationship building so that relationships were not just transactional. And as part of that, listening became really important. We had to listen to understand what new populations value, what they want, and also what they need. And lastly, it is so important to start small, to set realistic goals. So sometimes you might have to go back to some of the things that you're already doing really well and then scale up from there, building incrementally. You want to engage people with your core of what you do well, and then build trust and brand that, market that, and expand that. So this might look like building little pockets, maybe even 10 people at a time, and until those pockets can build on each other exponentially. So with all of this in mind, we hope that sharing these learnings and our experience at the Bay Area Jewish Community Federation and Endowment Fund is relevant to your foundation or institution. And if you have any questions about any of the content shared today, we hope that you will be in touch. So thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. Bye.